Welcome to another episode of Bright Insights, the podcast that leads you to less stress and more success. Here's your host, Paul Bright.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Bright Insights. I am your host, Paul Bright. Today's episode, W is for worry. The bottom line up front is worry gets you nowhere. Worry gets you nowhere. Listen, let's be real. You're going to worry as a new leader. You're going to dip into anxiety. And sometimes you're going to fail. Other times, more often than not, you're going to succeed. In all of this, you are going to worry. And I'm going to tell you, as someone who has failed and succeeded many times over in life and who has worried to the point of anxiety to where it affected my health and my family and my career, don't worry. It's going to get you nowhere. And how does it seem so simple? Oh, don't worry. People say, don't worry. It's not, honestly. But we can start to eliminate worry. We're going to define worry for what it is and why people will convince you that you should worry when you're in charge, even though you shouldn't. So what happens when you worry? Well, the first thing is you start focusing on what could go wrong. You become anxious, which can translate into hypervigilance, where everything is a threat. You have to be extra secure. You start obsessing over details that are meaningless. You start spending extra time looking for mistakes, losing sleep at night. It can start affecting your health. You can start to gain weight. Does any of that seem helpful? Have there been times in the past where you worried about something, it came true, and then you died? Well, you're listening, so I guess the answer is no, which is exactly my point. And it's not to diminish that bad things can happen. It's just to say that worrying about all these bad things doesn't help. So let's redefine worry so we can get rid of it and focus on success. Okay, so one of the issues I see that comes up with worry is it's often mistaken as care, as in if you aren't worrying about something, then you don't care. People will equate worry with care. Oh, I'm so worried that this thing is going to happen with my kid, even though in the end it's something very meaningless. I was worried he was going to be late to school. Well, so what if he's late to school? Why spend all this time fussing and mussing and fussing if he's late to school one day? Be concerned, well, we'll get into that in a minute, but worrying about something that in the end is meaningless, it really does not equate care. And so don't get in the trap of thinking if you're not worrying about something, then you don't care. It can be a sign of care, but it does not equate to care. And by worrying or acting worried to show that you care, you could have a very negative effect, not just on you, but your subordinates. And I'll tell you this, because I used to have a supervisor when I was in the military that would stay in the office extra hours, just poring over documents or just walking around and poking at every little detail in everyone's offices and like, oh, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? And just looking at stuff, and he would stay late. He would come early, but he really wasn't doing anything. And it's not this diminished leaders, because I know sometimes leaders are doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but there were other people of the same rank and responsibility of him in this building that were nothing like that. They came in, they worked, they communicated, they checked on things, but they weren't going to spend all this extra time looking busy, being worried about these tiny things. Because the thing is, if you're any leader of any sort of salt, you trust your people to do their jobs. You don't micromanage them. You let them do their jobs, and you give them enough confidence to say, okay, if you absolutely need me to be involved, let me know. That's what you did. You built them up that way, and you continued on. This guy didn't get it, and it was really funny because the unit I was in, we were starting up the unit. So there were a lot of things that we couldn't do until we got certain equipment, we got certain aircraft, we got certain things into place. And so we were busy, we were working, but it wasn't like we were running in missions 24/7, yet this guy was acting like we were running missions 25/8. All he did was worry. And the thing was, everything he did just created more anxiety in everyone else, because as soon as he'd walk in the room, everybody tense up looking for something like, oh my gosh, I wonder if this pencil's out of place because he's going to say something. I just don't want to deal with that. And it just spread from place to place, from office to office, and it just made things way, way worse. So yes, don't worry because you think it's going to show that you care, or even act like you're worried because it equates care. It can make things way, way worse. It's just a morale dropper. There is an opposite that can be just as bad. And that is not caring at all. Not looking like you care at all about problems that are obvious in your face that need to be addressed. If you don't have any sort of notion about how bad things are, or challenges that can go from small to huge, then you won't be prepared for a solution when they do. If you keep shoving it all off to the side and under the guise of blind optimism, you can end up with a situation like the infamous Fyre Festival. And if you're not sure what happened with the Fyre Festival, there's a couple of documentaries on it on Netflix and Hulu, and it involves an entrepreneur and venture guy, Billy McFarland. He was very, in a weird way, successful at raising a lot of money, at getting a lot of attention, attracting a couple of rap stars and celebrities to help him create this exclusive credit card club that charged, certain members fees, and they can get in special access to things. And it worked out. And then he was building a company where it was like, if you want a celebrity to make an appearance, a lot of times you had to go through all these hoops, but his company, would develop an app and develop a system where you can get these celebrities a lot faster. And that seemed to be working out okay. Well, he got this cool idea after going to the Florida Keys, I believe, of, hey, we can have a festival out here. We can just, get all the Instagram people to buy off on this and attract folks to come in, and we can have a huge music festival, and a lot of people will pay a lot of good money to come here, and that would be a great way to promote this app and a great way to raise some good capital. And this was a festival that normally would take a couple of years to plan at minimum, even with the best folks. There's a lot of things that have to happen. But he wanted it done in a handful of months. And it was a near impossible task. But every time something came up, like logistics, how are people going to use the bathroom, at this type of festival? What sort of laws are involved here? He would lie. He would say, oh, we'll get the money. We've got this. And anybody that threw stuff in his face was like, this is not going to happen this way. He'd say, well, maybe you shouldn't be part of this team. Thank you for your service. And he would hire somebody else. He would keep hiring yes people. And it did blow up in his face. And he kept pushing out this blind optimism and ignoring all the problems that were coming up. And instead of canceling it, he would cheat. He would make all these claims to other investors of things that he had lined up to get all this money to throw at it, and it still was not able to happen because there were some things that were just unavoidable. And it's because he didn't even have the one thing you should have that will help you get past this void of worrying too much and not knowing enough, and it's called concern. So that's the tool that you can use. Instead of diving into worry as your motivation to make sure things get done right, and instead of blind optimism and just pretending that things will get right, even though some problems and challenges are painfully obvious, you can have some concentrated concern. Concentrated concern. It's the lesser form of worry. Okay, every leader is going to get challenged. If you were taking over for somebody, or, 2 or 3 people above you were fired or let go, or they just left and now you're in charge, you've probably been handed a stack of challenges in front of you. We're short on staff here. This program didn't work out this way. This person left this in the lurch, and here's all the stuff that you got to work through. Okay? You've probably got a lot of things on the surface that you could worry about. And again, that's not going to help you. But you can have concern. Concern is the lesser form of worry. Every leader will be challenged with concern. You are acknowledging the challenge and showing that you care. Challenges are concerns. Unaddressed challenges can grow into worse ones. But what stops the concern from turning into worry is precise preparation. Prepare for the challenge and subsequent ones by breaking down the challenge into what you see, not what you think you see. Let's use a thunderstorm as an example. A looming thunderstorm 100 miles away does not mean it's going to push out F5 tornadoes all over the place in 2 minutes. It does have the potential to create a tornado, but there are so many other factors involved, like wind speed, ground temperature, direction. Is it going to go through a bunch of trees, through a bunch of buildings? Is there anything that's going to break it up? And when you break it down and study the details, you have a more precise idea of what's actually coming, when it's coming, and then you can prepare. And if you have enough time, you can practice. All right, looks like we got a thunderstorm coming 100 miles out. What does it look like? What are the reports? Get all that information together. Oh, it looks like we've got time. So if we had to go, here's where we're going to go. Otherwise, blah, blah, blah. You figure it out. You practice what you need to practice. And when you prepare well enough, you gain confidence. And that's when you do the next step, which is communicate this confidence. The more you speak it out loud, because it's rooted in truth, the less worried you and your subordinates will become. The more you speak it out loud because it's rooted in truth, the less worried you and your subordinates will become. Communicate this confidence. Here was the challenge. We're showing concern. Here's how we're preparing for this challenge. Here's what we're going to do about this challenge. Here's what it's going to look like when we're done. Look at what we've done. We've got this. We can handle this. The more you do that, because it's rooted in truth and not just some cliche, the more it starts to sink in and people become a lot less worried. Show concern, have precise preparation, communicate confidence. This is what kills worry. And when you can do all this for yourself and your subordinates, you'll have less stress and more success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Insights. For more information on how to have less stress and more success, visit brightinsightsmedia.com.
If you enjoyed this episode in particular, or the Bright Insights podcast overall, subscribe and share with your friends. That gives us a little more visibility. And with that, we can all have less stress and more success.
Tramp Loop Media.